Made in 2012, Starhawk is a third-person shooter developed by Lightbox Interactive and published by Sony as a PS3 exclusive. It is the follow-up to Warhawk, a 2007 multiplayer-only shooter. Starhawk used a unique build and battle system, where reinforcements, equipment, vehicles, and structures could be called on the fly with the use of Rift Energy, the game's primary currency, which gave the title an RTS feel despite being an exciting third-person shooter. Today, the online community around Starhawk has long since moved on, and the game is rarely mentioned alongside great PS3 shooters like Uncharted. Did Starhawk deserve to be forgotten? And are signs of the game's impact still around today? Let's answer these questions by examining the game's main feature, the multiplayer component. While it did have a single player, the game devs clearly intended for players to learn the ropes in the single player and then hop into the multiplayer. Think Quake Wars. The multiplayer works by pitting two opposing bases against one another to fight over rift extractors. Players alternate between defending their base and attacking the enemy base in a sort of conquest mode. Rift Energy can be used to build defense structures like walls or bunkers, offensive structures like vehicle depots, and a mix of both like auto turrets that can both defend and wreak havoc if deployed in an enemy base. Deploying the right structure at the right time and coordinating your building with teammates made Starhawk stand out from the rest of the shooter crowd. Further distinguishing Starhawk was its surprising single-player campaign. Starhawk features a cinematic single-player campaign with a complement of big-name voice actors.
It all started with a spark, a flash of blue gold, Rift Energy.
The single player is meant to introduce the player to the build and battle system, while also telling a compelling story set in a Wild West sci-fi setting. The game manages to tug at the heartstrings a bit, with a story about love, loss, and a struggle centered around blue gold, or Rift Energy, which may be an analogy for gold, oil, or just the pursuit of greed itself. During the course of a nearly 8-hour campaign, you will take part in large-scale battles in the air and on the ground. The game will demand that you make smart choices about your building and will put you in scenarios that will push you to the brink. These are some of the most cinematic and difficult battles I have ever played in a third-person shooter. And if you're great with third-person shooters but you stink at strategy, or if you can't fly a jet to save your life, you are not going to make it in this campaign, and that might be part of the problem for Starhawk. Most shooter fans cannot fly. Hell, they can barely drive, as anyone who has played Halo and found themselves in the passenger seat can tell you. The jets in Starhawk are jets. They are not easy to use helicopters. They are fast and hard to control. If you're not controlling it, it won't just sit there and hover and wait for your commands. So I can imagine how most shooter fans didn't like how vital to the gameplay flying jets were. I grew up playing Rogue Squadron and Battle for Naboo, so I'm used to being in the cockpit, but most gamers aren't. Further putting off mainstream shooter fans were the RTS elements. Strategy is fine in action games, if it is optional. In Starhawk, strategy is absolutely essential. Most shooter fans just want to shoot and not think. Thinking is what MOBAs are for. I personally love both RTS and shooters, and think Starhawk is the closest we may ever get to that cancelled Command & Conquer FPS, but I can see why the strategy elements, wonky jet controls, and a saturated shooter market prevented Starhawk from being a huge commercial success. That's not to say that Starhawk's legacy was completely forgotten, though. So, we have an intense third-person shooter with on-the-fly building mechanics and an intense multiplayer offering. Am I reminding you of something here? I'm not saying that Fortnite copied Starhawk, not at all. What I am saying is that each successful game lays down a brick that other game devs can use to build upon. I would not be surprised if some Fortnite devs played Starhawk, or at least saw it as a sign that this gameplay style can work. Remember, before becoming a huge battle royale phenomenon, Fortnite started off as a third-person tower defense style game. That sound familiar to you? In any event, Starhawk's innovations live on, if only spiritually, and that is a good thing, because this intense tactical shooter deserves to be remembered.
Ducked and taking heavy damage! Thought we were loaded and clear! What the hell happened?
Scabs happened. They weren't retreating. They were rallying. Got him. Ready Tidy up the arsenal. Get me in there now.